This conference will now be recorded.
And then built-in services for most used features like your backend integration. So the most used feature like backend integration, how you can connect with your backend to get the data or to post the data, like all the REST API integration or other features also. So those features which are most used features, like you want to navigate from your one screen to other screen, you want to pass some data between the screens. So those are like most used features which we use when we develop an application. So Angular has the built-in services to take care of that. So you don't have to reinvent the things over there. You can just use the built-in services of Angular and those will be like seamless. Apart from just development, it's we all know the testing also is very critical because if you're not doing a test right, you might leak issues to the production. So Angular thinks on that also. So it provides libraries to support unit test or end-to-end functional tests like a protector which is built on top of your Selenium which helps to do a functional test automation, and there are libraries to run support unit testing. So in that way, and that's why we call Angular as a framework. It's actually end-to-end uh, framework which provides all the aspect of web development. So that's why Angular fits that. So you might have heard React. So React is not a framework; it's just a library. You might have heard Vue.js. That's again not a framework; it's just a library. So so that's why Angular and what Angular, because Angular has those features which helps to make your development easy and fast. Okay, so now we learn why Angular, but why Angular 4, 5, 6 I've mentioned, the new version basically. Then what's there in Angular new version, right? That's why the adoption rate is very high. So because when Angular 1 was there, people are using it, but when the new Angular came, the adoption rate went very rapidly. So that's why I put a slide saying why Angular 4, 5, 6. So when I say 4, 5, 6, why I clubbed it all together? Because a few projects use Angular 4, few Angular 5, Angular 6, because ideally in 4, 5, 6 there is not very breaking changes. So the concept wise, your Angular 4, 5, 6 is almost same. Here and there, few improvements are there. So, but the core of Angular 4 and 5 or 6 is same. So, so I can just say Angular 6 also, which actually makes sense. So I just put it when you do any project, you might see that project might be using Angular 4 or Angular 5 or Angular 6, but you don't have to be afraid saying, oh, I have only learned Angular 6. Now how will support Angular 4 and 5 projects? You can still do that because the core concept of Angular 4, 5, 6 is same. Okay, so why Angular 4, 5, 6? Okay, so the first was Angular JS, which is actually Angular 1. And after that, they call it Angular. The first version of Angular was called Angular JS, that is Angular 1. And then the rest they call Angular. And then after 1, the 2 came. There is no 3 version of Angular, so there is no Angular 3. Then 4, then 5, and then 6 is recently released. So, what are the best in Angular latest versions? They are fast. So, what I mean by fast? So, the app load time is faster, the change detection is faster, the rendering time is faster. So, Angular 6 is faster than all its previous versions, be it Angular 1, 2, or 4, 5. So, it's fast. That's why that's the better part of new Angular. and it's modern. Why you are saying it's modern? Because after the old releases like Angular 1 or Angular 2, there are a lot has been changed in the JavaScript world. So the new Angular has adopted all the latest JavaScript features. Apart from that, adopting a new feature, it has a support for its latest and legacy browser also, because that's important. Because when we develop application, we can't just think of one browser. You have to basically support all the browsers, because a google.com or gmail.com cannot say, hey, you are not using Chrome's latest version, or you are not using Firefox, so I cannot render it correctly. They don't say that. So they don't have a option what user is using. So they have to support basically all the browsers which is there in the market, basically all the supported versions. So in that way, Angular is good. You don't have to think much about that. Angular behind the scene takes care of that. You just write your application, you just develop your application and the business functionalities. Angular takes care of that. It supports the latest and legacy browsers, but still it's modern and it's easy. That's the best part. That's why the adoption is pretty high. Compared to its previous versions like Angular 1 or Angular 2, it has less concepts and it has less inbuilt directives, simplified APIs, easy binding. So these are the thing why people are adopting Angular new versions, and it's easy to learn and easy to start with. Is Angular 6 a stable version? Nitin is asking. Yes, Angular 6 is a stable version. That's an official release,
Okay.
so it's a stable version. So and then incredible tooling. So they have a lot of tools which helps to do our day-to-day development. Like they have a very good support of IDs now. There are command line interface to create application, the command line interface to generate the code blocks. They have a late integration. They have very good support for unit testing. They have very good support for your functional testing. So they have incredible tooling to take care of everything what you need in your day-to-day application development. So these are the reasons why we can choose Angular over other libraries and frameworks. So now we covered what is Angular, why Angular, even why the latest version of Angular. So now we'll go to the next slide, which talks about your uh, language choice. So what is a language choice? So in Angular, so we all know JavaScript is a thing which we use to develop an Angular application. But Angular, the new versions provides three different options to write your application. One is obviously JavaScript, and JavaScript both the versions ES5 and ES6. So why I mentioned ES5 and ES6 over there? ES5 was there for a long time to write any JavaScript application. That's like the older version of JavaScript. And in 2015, they have launched ES6, and then the JavaScript community decided they are going to release the new versions every year, the small changes, because ES5 and ES6, the release dates are way too where the ES5 is a legacy and ES6 came after so long. So a lot of drastic changes happen, and then it takes you time for all to accommodate with those changes. So they decided they will now release everywhere. So now ES7 and ES8 are also out, but those are like incremental changes from ES6. But ES5 and ES6 is a drastic change. So Still, all browsers doesn't understand all the ES6 features. So what behind the scene happens, all the ES6 code, which is ES 2015, get transpiled to ES5 so that all the browsers can understand. But that you don't have to worry about that. Again, Angular takes care of that behind the scene. You can write anything which is there in JavaScript, be it a latest or be it older version, you don't have to worry about that. But you just have to know it, what's happened behind the scene. So yeah, so you
So
can either write.
excuse me, can I ask some questions?
Yeah, sure, Charles.
Yeah, first question. So, our training has some any coding demo?
Yeah, we'll have. So first, we're trying to understand what is there, and then obviously after this session, all session will be coding on.
Oh, okay. So, the second question is, so you said the AngularJS is for the mobile develop or application develop. So that's
Yes.
for mobile only for Android. Is that right? It not doesn't suitable for iPhone. Is that right?
No, so you can develop an application even for iPhone also.
Also can for iPhone.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you have heard of a terminology called hybrid application. So
oh,
hybrid application, what we do, we write the code once, and then you can create an executable out of that for your iPhone, Android, Windows Mobile, everything. Obviously, you need a different libraries also to do that. Like there are libraries called Cordova, Ionic is there, which helps to do that. But oh, yes, you can use Angular for your iPhone application also.
oh, okay. So last question. So can we download your PPT material after training? After 1 day's training
Yeah, I
finish?
think after training, the organizer will send you all the PPTs or the any code, everything, whatever I use.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's all, Charles.
Yeah. No questions. Thanks.
Cool. So yeah, language choice. I was talking. So we can have ES5 and ES6, whatever you like or you know. You can write and develop your Angular application using that. There is one more thing which has come with Angular that's called TypeScript. So if you just to understand in a one-liner what a TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript. So there are features which are not available in JavaScript, but people who are from a background of like a Java or a .NET world, so we all know JavaScript as a language is a bit different from our traditional languages like Java or the C++ or the .NET. So the TypeScript, what they do, they try to provide, develop a features which are very close to how Java, C++, and .NET world, so that anyone coming from that world, they can understand the TypeScript or learn the TypeScript in a faster rate. So it's just a superset of JavaScript. So it uh, behind the scene again, because browser doesn't understand TypeScript, what Angular does for us, it transpile those TypeScript to JavaScript before even rendering to a browser. That's again take care by Angular behind the scenes. So actually, it doesn't run done by Angular. There are libraries which which does that, but those libraries are part of your Angular application. When you generate or when you set up an Angular application, those automatically gets downloaded, so you don't have to worry about those. Again, those happens behind the scene, so as a beginner you don't have to worry about those. And the third choice is Dart, and Dart is a non-JavaScript language. It's nothing related to a JavaScript. Again, behind the scene, the Dart convert into transpile into JavaScript before even running in a browser. I think the adoption of Dart is very low. And so a lot of people either use the JavaScript or TypeScript to write an Angular application, but again, Dart is an option. And but the more uses is on TypeScript because uh, TypeScript is easy compared to your JavaScript coding. And Angular also suggested to go with TypeScript. Either you can go with JavaScript also if you're comfortable with that. But whatever the coding I will do, I'll do in TypeScript, and you'll feel it's easy. And that's a recommended one, mostly used one. So if you see any Angular application in your organization anywhere, all might have or most might have gone with TypeScript. But concept wise, there is no different. It's all about what language you're using. Whatever language you use, the concept will remain same. So these are the three language choices which Angular provides to build an application. Then a bit on TypeScript, because we are going to use TypeScript as a language for developing Angular application. So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. It can be transpiled or compiled to JavaScript, and it's an open source again, backed by Microsoft, and Angular is backed by Google, and TypeScript is backed by Angular, and Google and Microsoft come together, and yeah, they all are giving a good push to the TypeScript because yeah, it's easy and it has it has a lot of features available like class inheritance, which actually is not there in your traditional JavaScript, because in JavaScript there is nothing called class before years 2015. And it has strong typing. I think that's why people are using TypeScript, because JavaScript doesn't have typing. So when I say typing, what does this mean? So typing means, let's say you have a variable and you say this variable has to hold only number. You cannot store a string or a boolean to that variable. So that's not possible in JavaScript. You can override it anytime. So you can say var a, and a can be assigned a number, and in the next line you can assign it a boolean value, true or false. But with the TypeScript, now you have that flexibility. You can say this has to be a boolean, or this has to be a string, or this has to be a number, so that you can only store those. So it has that so strong typings, so which helps the developer to mistakenly not reassigning some other value to a variable. Apart from that, it has other features like the class, the inheritance, the instance, all those things what actually they're in traditional Java or C++ world. Apart from that, TypeScript has a good IDE support with all feature like autocomplete, IntelliSense, things like that, which as a developer we like. And it's available as an NPM package because it's an open source. We can just download it using NPM. Okay, so what are the IDs I'm going to use? So you are free to use any ID of your like. So there are IDs, are the IDs, popular IDs which developer uses to write Angular application. One is Visual Studio Code, again developed by Microsoft, and then the Atom, the Wavestorm, Eclipse, Bracket. So you can use whatever you are comfortable with. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, and this is a recommended one also because TypeScript goes well with Visual Studio Code, because TypeScript and the code developer is all Microsoft. So you can download it from Wave if you don't have Visual Studio Code, or if you want to use some other IDE, it's up to you. You can use it.
Um, I have a quick question.
Yeah, Nitin.
Are these all IDs free?
Yeah, all these IDs have a free version. You can download it.
Okay.
Okay, so now we come to the part, the environment setup. Okay, so environment setup is super easy for Angular. So, and this is just one time. You have to invest some time to do a setup. So you have to install a node and npm in your machine. I think if you have done any web development, you should have this. But just make sure your versions of node and npm is more than 6.9 and 3.x, that you can verify quickly now itself. And if you don't have node and npm, you can just search in a browser. So you can say node.js. So the first website which comes, nodejs.org, you can go to that and you can download this guy. Recommended for most user, whatever. I am on Mac OS, so it's suggesting me for Mac. If you're on Windows, it will suggest you a Windows version, and then you have to don't download the latest one, the current one. Always download the LTS, which is will be a stable version, because your current version might not be stable. So don't go for the current version. Always go for the recommended version, which will be a stable version. So go for this LTS version, which will be a stable version. If you don't have any, if you have already there, then what you can do, you can just check the versions. And when downloaded this node, npm gets installed automatically, so you don't have to do anything extra to install your npm. So you just say a node minus v, which will give you your current version of node, and similarly you can do npm minus v, which will give you your current version of npm. And you make sure you're running more than 6.9 and npm should be more than version 3, then you are good to go. So that's the only prerequisites to have. And then after, the next step is you have to install Angular CLI. What is Angular CLI is? So Angular CLI gives you a command line interface to create Angular application, to generate Angular blocks, reusable codes, Angular skeletons, things like that. So, or you can build, compile, run Angular application using command line CLI. So that's what the CLI is there. So CLI is actually helping us to do less jobs. So you can just write a command and it will help you. It will to do any task. Like I just want to run my application in browser. One command running on a command line will run your application into browser. So that easy it is. But you have to install that before. So once you install node and npm, you just have to say in your command line npm install -g @angular CLI. So this you have to do it. So I have already done that, so that will be there already. So you just have to say npm install -g. -g is for global installation. Okay, so Nitin is asking why npm node and npm is required. So node and npm is required. So any JavaScript code, if you want to run on your machine without browser, then node can do that. So if you want to understand what node is nothing but it's an JavaScript runner. So node itself is having a JavaScript engine which helps to run any JavaScript code without a browser.
So
So
it's like a
that,
runtime for JavaScript.
yes, you can say that.
Okay. Okay.
So it has a similar engine which a browser is having.
Right. Right.
And then what is npm? So npm basically helps to install any node packages. So there are a lot of node packages which are available in npm website. So if you go over here and you just type npm JS. Okay, so this npm JS website, so if you go that, this is like your cloud for all the
So it's basically
packages.
reusable libraries. Okay, packages. Okay.
Yeah, reusable libraries, you can say that. So there are
Okay.
a lot. So nowadays, if anything someone has invented, no one wants to reinvent it again.
Mm-hmm.
So all uses those packages which is already there, and if it suits your requirement, you can do it. What
Okay.
Angular also doing, they are also as a package is there in npm one. So if you want to use it, you can just install them or download them using npm from npmjs.com, and you can use it. So you don't have to go for, let's say for Angular, I want to go to this website. For Bootstrap, I have to go to the other website to download it. For Java, jQuery, I have to go to the other. So you don't need that. So
So
anything
all
you,
these, sorry, so once you
yeah,
download a library, it can be used across all the applications that you wish to run on the machine.
yeah. So basically, when I say install, it actually downloads it and sits in your machine.
Okay. So it can be used for all the applications shared across.
Yeah, you can do that, but generally we don't do that. So each
Okay.
application will have its own dependencies, and we just download it for that application because we
Oh,
do.
okay.
It might be some application might be using some other version. Your
Mm-hmm.
other application might be using other version. You don't might not need a new version for that application. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always a best practice. So for that
Okay.
application, you define your dependencies and just
Okay.
download those dependencies.
Okay.
So NPM is
And
that. So
and
yeah, please
how
go.
is Angular CLI uh, now coming into picture? Like I understood Node, NPM. Now you talked about Angular CLI also, right?
Yes.
So how is it helping us to create Angular application?
Yeah. So before even creating the application, you need a skeleton, right? What all, like for an Angular application, what all dependence libraries are there, and how your folder structure should be, how you want to run your application, how you want to create a component or service, which are basically your Angular custom blocks. So Angular CLI helps that. So you don't have to reinvent those. So if you just run a command saying, hey, Angular command line, we refer Angular as a ng. So if you just say ng serve, it will just compile your application, it will build your application, it will launch in a browser so that you can see it how your application look like. So to do those, actually behind the scene, you have to do a lot more steps. But Angular has simplified that, and it's just given a one command to do that. So in that way, Angular CLI is helping, because
Okay.
actually if you have to compile the code, you have to create an executable out of that, or you want to launch in a browser, or you want to transpile from your TypeScript code to JavaScript. There are a lot of other steps you have to do it, because a different libraries does those things. But when with Angular, with a single command, Angular takes care of those in behind the scene. They know what to do to come to an end state. So or you want to just create an application, I'll show you how to create an application.
Okay.
Basically a skeleton, or you want to bootstrap your application. So all those things can be done using Angular CLI. Make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got what is Node, now we got what is NPM, now we got why we need Angular CLI. So to install Angular CLI, as I mentioned, you just have to say npm install -g. So whenever we say, so these are like uh, extra value if we give. So if I say npm install -g, that means we want to you install globally. What does that mean? That means in your system or machine or laptop, uh, if you open the command line, the ng command will be detected globally. And if you just don't say npm install -g, that will install locally. Locally means inside that folder or directory only, it will get detected. So that's the difference between npm install -g or not -g. So whenever you're installing CLI, make sure you're installing globally. So you have to say npm install -g @angular/CLI. So once you do that, it should able to install Angular CLI. Once it gets installed, you just can say ng-v. Okay, it's throwing some error because I might have done a lot of things because of those issues, but it should able to detect, and it should give you a version. And for the website of Angular is angular.io. So if you open the first time the angular.io, this will be your website for any reference. So obviously I'll be coaching you what to be learned and things like that, but any doubt you are coming anytime in development phase, you can come to this website. So first thing which comes the get started. So that's also they have mentioned the same thing. First you have to install the Angular CLI, and install -g Angular CLI. Once you do that, to create a new app, you just have to say ng new my app. So you can come to here and just to say ng new my, so which I have already created my app. I just say same. So if I do that ng new my app, so which is the next step. So in my slide also I mentioned that. So first you have to install your Angular CLI, and then you just to create a new application, you just have to say ng new and whatever the application name you want to give basically. So I've given, let's say, my app or my test app. Okay, so ng new my test app, whatever the name you like, you can give it and just run the enter. You can see it's created few of the files which are listed over there. These all files got created automatically, and then finally it's saying installing packages for tooling via npm. So whatever the dependency packages are there, it's trying to install them now. So this step might take some time based on your network speed and things like that. So installing packages for tooling via npm. So whatever the dependencies Angular need as an application, so it's trying to downloading. Installing means it's a kind of download only. So it's trying to downloading them via npm. So that's what this ng new might test up. So if CLI was not there, you might have to do it manually.
So where does it create on your local machine? Does it have a default folder where it creates this application?
So wherever you are running this command, so whatever the folder you are running this command ng new my test
Okay.
app, there itself it will generate.
Okay.
So I can show that. Where exactly it's doing it. Just give me a moment. I have just stopped the sharing for now. I'm just opening that code in my code. Yeah, I shared my screen back. So this is Visual Studio Code, what you're seeing over here. So this is a Visual Studio Code, what I am using as an IDE. You can download it from web. And this is my first app, which I just created just before the session. Just now I created the other one, my test app. So your folder structure looks like this. So these all comes automatically, whatever you're seeing it. And IDE is sorry, the code is very good. So it has an integrated terminal also. So if you go, you can see debug console integrated terminal. So you can click on that. You'll get a terminal also here. So you don't have to switch between your terminal and IDE. So it has an integrated terminal. So you can do all thing what you want to do in a terminal here only. So you have to go to the view and just integrate terminal, debug console, output, everything is here. And here you can see all your folder structure which has been generated. You can see I'll explain about what file and what is the significance of this. And in the meantime, if we go to our terminal, which we already, you can still see it's installing, because actually it is trying to install a lot of libraries. So that's the reason it takes some time on this page. Once it's done, then it will be done. Okay, so once you do that, then the final step, what I have mentioned in my slide, you have to do ng-serve. And what this ng-serve, and okay, to do this ng-serve, you have to go inside that project, what you have created, and then you have to run ng-serve. So if I go, okay, something is going on, let's just finish, then we'll go. And before that, let's try to understand what it generates. So first it mentioned it created few files, right? These all files it created. And you see one folder called node modules is there. So this is a folder where all your dependencies goes. So, and how you get to know what all your dependencies are? So in any project, the first file to look is package.json file. So this is a first file which you should be looking, because this will give you a clear picture what all libraries, dependencies, what the application is all about, things like that. So if you see this package.json, you can see the name of the application is here, which is my first app, version of the application, the license of the application, and scripts are, these are like commands to be used, and it's a private or a public project, things like that. And this is a column dependencies. So this is where we need what all libraries our project need, and that comes. So you can see it's still showing Angular 5 because my CLI is older. So you guys, when you install, you'll get your latest CLI, and when you generate an application, you might get Angular 6. But that is not a concept wise, not much difference in 5 or 6. So I can still explain all the concept using 5, or I can upgrade it after the session, because my CLI is still old. Okay, so that's not a concern. So you can see all the dependencies are Angular, and then animation, common, compiler, core. So these are the libraries. And what Angular has done, Angular has separated out each of its functionality, because it doesn't need one single file, and it has to say, hey, you want to use Angular any feature, just use this library. So in that time, that library will be too huge. And you might not, someone might not need animation in your application, or someone doesn't need a forms in your application, so he or she doesn't need this library, that's all. So that's why Angular has made a lot of libraries, and whatever you need you can have it, and whatever you don't need you can remove from here. Whatever the version you need, you just have to change the version. So let's say I want 5.1.0, so I just have to change 5.1.0, and once you change it, you have to say npm update. So when you say npm update, or you say npm install, these are the commands. What will do, it will go and check what version you are having and what you have changed in your package.json. It will just diff that, and if it's find any mismatch, it will go and download or upgrade that library for you. It's simple. So the upgrade process is very simple. You can hear in the package.json file, you just have to come and change the version name, and you have to run npm install, the command. Where you have to run it again, go inside this application folder, my first app, and just run npm install. It will try to install the package what you want. the version. Or you need any library. Let's say in my application, I might need a Bootstrap also. So I just have to say Bootstrap, and I can mention a Bootstrap version. Version
Oh,
section.
excuse me. So,
Yep.
I finished downloading the installation for the AngularJS. So if for the dependency, I don't have Angular slash animation. So it doesn't matter?
Sorry, I didn't get it. So your installation is done, you're saying. Okay, mine also done. So you got this step.
Yeah, my dependency, yes. My dependency for the packaging in the packaging.json, my dependency doesn't have Angular slash animation. That's a package.
Okay, that's fine. It doesn't. So this is not there. You're saying Angular slash animations.
So it doesn't matter,
It's
right?
okay.
Yeah, I don't know how
No.
this
So to
Angular
create a
slash
sample
animation.
application, yeah, got it. So for a sample application, you don't need it. If it's not there, it's okay. So if we want, we can add it later. As of now, we don't need it.
Okay.
Okay, so once you have done, then you can run a command called ngserve. So once you run a command ngserve, oh sorry, I'm running at the wrong place. So actually you have to go inside that folder, inside that project what you have created, and then you have to run ngserve. Oh, not server, ngserve. Okay, I have to fix this. I'm getting an error saying Angular dev kit or core, and some versioning must be issued because of my older versions. So, and the other thing which you're talking about, let's say I have to change a version, right? I just have to say Angular 6.0. Let's say I don't know whether that's the right version or not for CLI, and just save it and just go to, okay, now you don't have to go to the terminal also, although I have integrated terminal here. So I can just launch that, open that integrated terminal, and you can just say npm install, and now it will try to find out what's the difference between the previous package.json or the now, and it will just try to install that package for me or upgrade that package for me. So Charles, your ngserve worked. Have you tried to run ngserve going inside that project what you have just created?
Oh, hold on, I didn't.
Sometimes you guys might get issues. I'm getting because I have versions are not in sync. My CLI is some other version. I think some older version. Because of my existing project, I'm using it. I have to change it. So I can fix that. That's why I'm trying to update this on my CLI. It takes some time. So in the meantime, I can still explain. So all your dependencies will go here in the dependencies, and you see there are two things now. One is dependencies, and the other one is tab dependencies. So what's the difference between these two? So to run your application in production environment, you just need a dependencies. And then dependencies are like your unit testing libraries, your end-to-end testing libraries, your code analyzer. Those are basically you need in your development phase, because those libraries you don't need in your production code. Those you only need when you're developing, because you want to run your test, or you want to do a protector testing, the end-to-end testing, or you want to have your code analyzer, static tool. static code analyzer, things like that. So those or the CLI, those only you need in your development phase. So those libraries go to dev dependency. So when you create a production ready code out of this project, it will not bundle the step dependencies into your production ready bundle. It will only bundle these dependencies because these dependencies are what you need to run your application. And dev dependencies are the tools what you need to develop your application as well, along with your libraries what you want to run. So guys, you got what's the difference between the dependencies and dev dependencies? The dev dependencies are the libraries what you need during your development phase as well, and dependencies are the libraries what you need to run your application. Okay, so that's all about package.json. So anytime any version change you can do over here. There is a significance of this also. Whatever you're seeing as a tick, so that means I'm saying anytime if any latest version of this library available, you go ahead and install it. So that's why when I'm running pim install, it's taking some time because it will try to install the latest of, no, I think it might have already installed. So I'm saying anything of 5 version latest is there, you go ahead and install it. That is tick. So if I just remove the tick, I am saying Angular core, I need just 5 version. I don't want any other version. So that's the difference between the symbol what you're seeing and having not that symbol. And you might see sometime the symbol like this also. So this I'm saying you install any latest sorry, the minor versions which are available of this, not the major versions. This means you go ahead and install the latest version. So that's the difference between these things.
Sorry, can you explain that again?
Okay, so you can see there is a symbol here before the version name. So that means I'm telling npm you go ahead and install me the latest available version of this library. Okay, I know current version is 5.1 because I don't know when they will change. They might change tomorrow to 5.2, they might change tomorrow to 5.3. I might not be tracking that, but you're saying I don't care. Whatever the latest version they release, Angular release, anytime when I run npm install, I should get the latest version of that. That's what you are saying in package.json. But if you remove those, you are saying I don't care what they're releasing. I always want 5.1.
So in a live project, would you recommend to have
No, so in the live project, we don't do that. So in the live project, we go with a specific version.
so you plan upgrade, not leave it to this configuration. If you want
Yes,
to upgrade, then you plan and then okay.
yeah, you're right. But for learning purpose, you can have that. So that then
Okay.
only you will get to know what new has come. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now there are so many other files you are seeing over here. So we don't worry about other files much though, but still I can explain. There is Angular CLI JSON file. So this is a file which supports the Angular CLI commands because from this file structure it get to know where to generate. So because with CLI you can generate the Angular blocks also. So with this file's configuration you get to know where to generate blocks and things like that. So this is all a kind of a configuration for Angular CLI. We go and hardly update this or change this. Uh, So you can see when I did that and the update, you can see a lot of dependencies error I'm getting. So these kind of error, if you come, you have to resolve those by knowing which version supports what. So sometimes what problem happens, your one package dependent on some other package version, and think that chaining will be there. So you can see here what it's saying. Bootstrap this guy requires a pair of jQuery this, but nothing was installed. Anyway, we don't need that bootstrap. I just added it just to explaining to you guys. So I can remove that bootstrap. So these are like error it will throw if you don't have anything. So it's saying this schematics Angular 1117 requires Angular dev kit of core 29, which is not there. So you have to think of installing that also. So these kind of issues come because in the package world, you have to deal with that. But in the default application, ideally for you guys, I don't think it might be coming because I develop here and there a lot of things. So things might messed up with the version and more for me, but I'll fix it. Tomorrow it should be clean for you guys. So what happens when you try to install node modules? If you might be surprising in the dev dependencies, hardly some 10 dependencies are there, and here some 15. So you should have 15 packages. What you might be thinking, right? So you're seeing a node module folder. You just open that, and you will be just amazed seeing how many libraries or packages you're having now. Endless. And why it is? Because each library is dependent on some other library, so they behind the scene download that, and again that library depends on some other library, they download that. So it's now a library world, a lot of packages. So that's why now you might be seeing some more than 100 or 200 packages get installed on my machine now. And although that install not took so much time, it was still fast. But all your Angular related thing will comes here at Angular. So you can go inside that, you can see all your Angular libraries here, animation, CLI, common compiler, code, and things like that.
So when
Any
when
question?
this thing is deployed to a production, when user tries to access the first page of the application, all these files are have to be, I mean, they go to the browser, or they are packaged so that the size is reduced and then it goes to the browser.
Yeah, whenever we do a production build, the size always goes reduced. And that's why we have mentioned dependencies and dev dependencies, and you be very careful. You don't put your dev dependencies into dependencies, because those also will go part of bundle, which you might not need also in your production ready code. And obviously the sizing matters. So still your load time and things will be very fast, being so many libraries. So library just makes a life easier, saying your separation of concern. Because if JSON parsing I have to do, why Angular has to do it? There are some other libraries who is doing it. So Angular might be using that JSON parsing library behind the scene. So it's like that.
So my question was like, how does it work so fast in spite of so many JS files? Like you just
No,
told,
so
like hundreds
okay,
of
so
package libraries.
yeah, so what it does when it builds a production ready code, so you have to go to search the folder, so where actually all the source code sits, and the
Okay.
first file which you have to look into the index.html file.
Okay.
And in the so what it does behind the scene, it actually creates one single file out of this all files.
Okay.
So if you see, there is no reference to any of the HTML, any of the JavaScript files and things like that, because
Right.
what Angular does with whatever the code you write, it just create one JavaScript file out of that. Whatever the libraries you are having, it just create one library file out of that, and and at a runtime, it just loads one JavaScript file, one library files, and things like that.
Okay. So we might be able to see that one file when we debug an application in the browser, right?
Yeah, no. So
Developer.
when you run on a developer mode, you can still see the TypeScript because that's help to debug. But if you do a production ready code and build on your browser, then you
Okay.
will see only one file,
Okay.
and that will be even in a minified version. So it will be hard to understand
Right.
what it's
Yeah.
doing.
It's,
You know the minification, right? So
yeah.
it will
It's not
remove the
readable.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Redundant.
basically ugly,
All the redundant code.
yeah, ugly format. So it's uglified.
Correct.
Yeah. So let me try to run my ngServe if it's working. So I still have some versioning issues here and there. Angular dev kit core, it's not able to find out. Just give me a moment. I'm looking for a project, older one, which I have already resolved this issue, and I'll try to show you that.
I
Just
have
give
a
me a moment.
quick question before you leave.
Yeah. No, I'm not
Uh,
leaving.
I mean, before you do
Yeah.
the other stuff, like I tried
Yeah.
to install Node on my machine while you were explaining things, and I
Mhm.
didn't. I downloaded the LTS version, and when I tried to execute it, it's not installing. It's saying, it gives me an option saying either repair or uninstall.
I think you have older versions there, so you have to first uninstall the older version.
Okay, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So how can we get success after engine server? How do we know we engine server success?
Yeah, Charles, just give me 2 minutes, so I'll just demo you that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So I got it. So now I'm sharing my screen back. So okay, so this is, I think I've generated few days back, and I have fixed my problem also. So now when you go and so now you can open a terminal, go inside your project, or if you're using Visual Studio Code, you can open the terminal over there itself, and just you have to say ngServe. This is again same application, a generated one, my first app, and you just say ngServe. So you can see it's taking some time. So what it's doing, what it does behind the scene, it's uh, transpile all TypeScript file to JavaScript file, And now you can see, right, the Nitin was asking what happens and how it loads. If you see, only the 6 files comes together. So it creates an inline bundle.js. It's create a main bundle.js, polyfill bundle.js, style bundle.js, vendor bundle.js. That's all. And these all JS files get loaded. And you can see it's saying ng server is listening on a port called localhost 4200. So open your browser and open this URL. So you go to your browser and then say localhost 4200. Now you can see your app. I think I have changed something, so that's why you're seeing change. So this will not see the below one. So are you seeing anything when you run that, Charles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Success.
So now your application, your environment is set up. Now you're ready to explore Angular, and you can start writing. You can do changes. So if you want to feel you have done some changes and do is go to the src folder, go to your app component .html file, and instead of welcome to you can, then a churn will be there. Here you can change something. You can say my first app or Angular app. I'll explain about all the folder structure, things like that, but for now you can do that. Save it. So when you save it, you don't have to do anything. It automatically compile again, and it's create that file again and render it to the browser again. You just have to go and open your browser. You can see now it changes my first Angular app. Welcome to Angular. So mine, you might be seeing these things different. I think this I have added it, but in your default you are seeing some Angular links over here, right? So Swan, anything from you? You can type in if any questions, anything. So we created an Angular app using CLI. We have to understand still the generated folder structure and files, but we build it and run it on browser. Yeah, we did that. So let's understand few of the files. So I have already mentioned what the package.json is, which is a critical file. And then you can see editor.config. This is all about your editor configuration. Git ignore, as you guys know. So nowadays Git is popular. Code repositories. So you want to put what all file you don't want to dump into your repositories, and so that will be your ignore file. Basically, the node modules, anything which is only specific on your machine to run your application, you don't want to be part of that project, obviously. So that you can specify over in git ignore file. Karma conf. I'm not explaining much because when I'll say you will talk about unit testing, I'll run. So karma conf, you just understand this is some configuration file to run your unit test. Protector is again a configuration file to uh, run your protector test, the functional test. And then the readme. So anything on your project, any readme you want, you can write that. tsconfig is again a configuration file, your TypeScript, because we're going to use TypeScript. tslint is a static tool analyzer, which will analyze your code and give error if you are not following coding standards. And this is again a configuration file of that. So these are the files which will be there on your root folder. And then there will be a folder called E2E. That E2E is all about your end-to-end testing. Again, I'll talk more about this folder when we'll talk about the protector testing, end-to-end testing. So all your testing files will go inside the C2E. And then node modules, I explained whatever the dependencies, packages or libraries you need, those goes inside this node module folder. And the folder which mostly will be working on or will mostly be worried about, that folder is your SRC folder. So in the SRC folder, now you see again there are a lot files are there. The first file to start with index.html. So index.html generally will be a first file which will get loaded when you hit on a browser. So this is your first file to be loaded, and from there on all other files gets loaded. So if you see in the first file, it's trying to saying loading AppRoot. So what is the AppRoot? So here the AppRoot is again, if you remember, I was saying with Angular it gives a functionality to create your own HTML element. So this AppRoot is basically Angular's own HTML element, because if you don't use Angular, this AppRoot doesn't have any meaning. So AppRoot comes into picture because we are using Angular, and Angular has predefined it naming application root. That's why they named it AppRoot. So AppRoot is nothing but so they've created a component which actually loads everything else. So that's basically your parent components which gets loaded. So if you go to the app component.ts file, you can see there is a thing called selector AppRoot. I'll explain more about this, how to understand, but this is what the relation to understand. You can see here the selector name is AppRoot, app component.ts. So that's why they mention AppRoot over here. And then the main.ts file, which is the first JavaScript file which get loaded, because this JavaScript files actually bootstrap the app module. App module is again root module. Again, I'll explain details in coming classes, but just to understand what the significance of files. So this main.ts is the first. So .ts if you're seeing, that means it's a TypeScript file. .js will be a JavaScript file. .html will be your HTML file. And then we'll have a polyfill.ts file, so you don't have to worry about this polyfill. So polyfill is if any feature is not available in any browser, then we want to write a polyfill for that. So that's where your polyfill.ts file is required. As of now it might be empty, nothing is there, but this is more of a required in your actual production application. If you're building, let's say you are using some of your latest JavaScript features, and then you got to know that feature is only available in Chrome and Firefox, not available in Safari or the Internet Explorer, then you have to write your own polyfill for that. Or sometimes few libraries will be there which will help you, so you can use those libraries and specify here when to use that library and when not to use. So those kind of thing we do in a polyfill.ts file. Style.css will be your global style file to style your application. Test.ts will be again your uh, configuration around your unit testing. We'll talk more when we'll talk about unit testing. Yes, and then there are folders. You can see environment folder. So environment folder is when we develop a real application, we set an environment, right? We set a prod environment, dev environment, stage environment. So those environment setups we can do over here, because sometimes the end URLs changes, your authentication changes between different environments. So those configuration we can do in environments folder. Assets folder will be any image, any MP3s, any uh, GIFs, anything you want, we can put it inside assets folder, and all your code goes to app folder. So mostly we'll be working inside src/app folder. Any other code to build an application, we have to go, it will go inside an app folder. Now we'll talk more about app folder and how your folder structure will, how our Angular structures will be on our next sessions. So today's session was all about understanding the folder structure and able to install Angular, able to run it on browser, which we did successfully. So Charles, Nitin, Swan, so I think if you guys have any questions, you can ask. I think for today's sessions, we are good what we want to learn.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Nitin.
So I uninstalled that Node.js and npm.
Okay.
Now, how do and I installed the latest version after downloading it, but how do I confirm that it was installed and I can proceed with the next step?
Yeah, so you can just say node minus v.
Yeah, you said that in the explanation. So where do I type node.v minus v?
Open your command line or terminal and just
Oh,
run node minus v.
so I need to first install CLI.
CLI will be no, not CLI. Just open your command line, normal command
Oh,
line or
normal
the
command line. Oh, okay, okay,
yeah.
okay. Okay, I got it. In Visuals, I have Visual Studio installed, I think, so I might have.
No, you are on Windows, right?
Yeah, so just CMD is enough.
Yeah, CMD is enough here.
Okay, and then just say node minus. What was the command you said?
Node space minus v.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing it right now. A node is not recognized as an internal or an external command.
Yeah, I think you need to set the path variables.
Okay, so that is, I'll find it online.
Yeah, you
Okay,
will have solution. So I think
okay,
there are
fine.
path variables might be able to set it.
Okay,
In Mac you don't need that, but in Windows sometimes it doesn't. It takes we need to set path variable for that.
okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, so once you do that, then you have to install. So anyway, so this PPT will be I'll be sharing, although the recording of this session also, so
Okay,
you can follow along if you're missing something, and
okay,
then you just install npm install minus g angular CLI, or you can go to this website. There also they might be saying same. So you just have to do this step. You're seeing it, right?
yeah, yeah, I'm following this website only.
Yeah, then you have to do this step,
Okay,
and then you have to do these steps, and done.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So Charles, any
Uh-huh.
questions for
So far it's
before we?
good. No questions. Thanks.
Cool. Hey Swan, any questions? You can type in. Okay, so Swan is not typing, so that means no questions from him either. So okay, so with this then we are good for today's session. So just a recap what we learned today. So today we learned what is Angular, why we want Angular, what are the features in new Angular, and okay, so this part I have not covered Angular 1 versus Angular 2 versus Angular 4 because I don't want to confuse on the first day itself what was there in Angular 1. So we'll get to know this on my later classes. Then we got what is the language choice, and obviously, but we got to know why we have to use the new Angular of all those features. It's fast, easy, and things like that. Then we did our environment setup using Node, NPM, and Angular CLI. Then using Angular CLI, we created a project and we run it. We saw it in browser. So it's super easy. Once you run your application, it just say which port it's running. So basically, it runs a local host, a server on your machine. Behind the scene, I'm just talking, and it's running that application on that local server, and you just have to type that address on your browser, and you can just see your application. This is the application which a default from default application which is coming here. Forget about the below part which I have done some changes, but if you run a default, this below some URLs will come of Angular. That's all it is. So we run that. So we saw it's not that easy. And environment setup only initial pain is you have to node and npm installation. Once that is done, from there on it's super easy. So once that is success, we just have to install CLI, and then using CLI you have to create a project, and using CLI you have to compile it and run browser. And for all this, the good part is we just have one command, ngserve. You just have to do ngserve inside your project directory, and then all that.
So
So
you
that's a
can,
quick recap.
sorry,
Yeah, please.
sorry, Patro. How do you check? I mean, add this code to GitHub or some other code repository?
Yeah, so we can do that. So there
Okay,
are there are
maybe
git
next session.
commands is there. Yeah, another session I can talk. So just a quick answer to that. So there are git. So you have to install git for that.
Okay,
So first you have to install git. Once you install git, again for Windows you have to add it in your path variable. Then that git command will be detected in your command line. And there are now git commands available by which you can push your application to GitHub. If you are
okay,
not comfortable with command line interface, there are UI based tools are available which you can download, and from UI based tools you can push your code to GitHub.
okay. So
I'll show you those.
Visual Studio Code will not have those add-ins?
Yeah, it's there. So if you are using Visual Studio Code,
Okay,
they have add-ons also. So if you see, there is a link here.
okay,
Those
okay.
control git.
That should be easy then.
Yeah, so from here you're seeing what all I have modified, and I can push it.
Okay. And one last question about the schedule. I might have missed, you might have told this, but like how long you said will it take to complete the entire course?
Yeah, so in ideal scenario, so every day I'll be having 1.5 hour session. So I
Okay,
think 15 to 16 sessions will be good enough. But
okay,
if more questions are there, it might 1 2 session we might extend.
okay. And weekends also you would continue?
No, weekends will be off.
Okay. So 5 weekdays, so that means around 3 weeks.
Yeah,
That's what we are looking. Okay.
yes. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining today's session. See you all on my next session. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.